2025. United States trade war with Canada and Mexico. In the spring of 2025, the air was thick with tension as the United States, Canada, and Mexico found themselves embroiled in a trade war that would reshape their economies and communities for years to come. The roots of this conflict ran deep, stemming from a complex web of political decisions, economic pressures, and societal changes. It all began with the United States' growing frustration over trade imbalances and a perceived lack of reciprocity in trade agreements. The administration, eager to bolster domestic industries and revive manufacturing jobs, initiated a series of tariffs on goods imported from Canada and Mexico, citing unfair competition and the need to protect American workers. The initial response from Canada and Mexico was one of disbelief. Both nations had long viewed their trade relationships with the United States as foundational to their economic stability. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, which had been renegotiated into the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, was supposed to create a more balanced trading environment. However, as the tariffs took effect, the reality of the situation became painfully clear. Canada retaliated with tariffs of its own, targeting American agricultural products, while Mexico responded by imposing duties on electronics and machinery. The trade war quickly escalated, leading to a cycle of retaliation that left industries on both sides of the border reeling. As the months passed, the impact of the trade war rippled through the economies of all three countries. In the United States, farmers in the Midwest faced plummeting prices for their crops as Canadian and Mexican markets, once reliable buyers, turned to alternative sources. The soybean farmers of Iowa, who had relied heavily on exports, found themselves watching their livelihoods evaporate as tariffs made their products less competitive. Meanwhile, manufacturers in the Rust Belt, who had hoped for a resurgence in American production, were left grappling with rising costs for raw materials imported from their neighbors. The irony was not lost on them. The very policies intended to protect American jobs were now threatening to dismantle the fragile recovery they had experienced over the past few years. In Canada, the situation was equally dire. The automotive industry, particularly in Ontario, felt the sting of the tariffs almost immediately. Canadian manufacturers, who had built their businesses on the seamless flow of parts and vehicles across the border, found themselves facing skyrocketing costs and dwindling orders. The government scrambled to support affected workers, but the reality was that many jobs were lost, and communities that had once thrived on manufacturing were left to grapple with uncertainty. In cities like Windsor and Oshawa, where the auto industry had been a lifeline, the trade war became a painful reminder of the fragility of economic interdependence. Mexico, too, was not spared from the fallout. The maquiladora factories, which had flourished along the border, began to see a decline in orders as American companies sought to diversify their supply chains in response to the tariffs. The economic strain was felt most acutely in cities like Juarez and Tijuana, where workers had relied on these jobs for their livelihoods. As unemployment rose, the social fabric of these communities began to fray. Families who had once felt secure in their economic prospects found themselves grappling with uncertainty and fear. Amidst the chaos, individuals and businesses began to adapt to the shifting landscape of trade relationships. Farmers in the United States turned their attention to domestic markets, exploring opportunities to sell directly to consumers through farmers' markets and local co-ops. Some banded together to form cooperative ventures, pooling resources to create value-added products that could compete in a changing marketplace. The resilience of these farmers was remarkable. They found innovative ways to connect with their communities, emphasizing the importance of local produce and sustainability. In Canada, automotive manufacturers began to pivot, investing in research and development to create electric vehicles and other technologies that could appeal to a global market. The trade war forced them to rethink their strategies, leading to collaborations with tech companies and universities to foster innovation. Workers who had lost their jobs in traditional manufacturing found new opportunities in the burgeoning green economy, retraining for positions that focused on sustainability and renewable energy. In Mexico, the response was equally dynamic. Amid the economic turmoil, entrepreneurs emerged, launching small businesses that catered to local needs. The rise of e-commerce provided a platform for artisans and craftspeople to reach broader markets, allowing them to showcase their products beyond the borders of their communities. The spirit of entrepreneurship flourished as individuals sought to create their own paths in an uncertain economic landscape. As the trade war dragged on, the three nations began to realize that cooperation might be a better path forward than continued conflict. Grassroots movements emerged across borders, advocating for trade policies that prioritized fairness and mutual benefit. Citizens from all three countries began to engage in dialogues, recognizing their shared interests and the interconnectedness of their economies. These efforts culminated in a series of trilateral meetings, where business leaders, policymakers, and community representatives came together to discuss ways to mend the rift. By late 2026, the trade war began to wane as negotiators worked tirelessly to craft a new framework for trade that addressed the concerns of all parties. The new agreement emphasized fair trade practices, environmental sustainability, and labor rights, reflecting the lessons learned during the tumultuous years of conflict. As the dust settled, the economies of the United States, Canada, and Mexico began to stabilize, but the scars of the trade war remained. Communities had been reshaped, industries had transformed, and individuals had adapted in ways that would leave a lasting impact on the North American landscape. The trade war of 2025 served as a stark reminder of the complexities of globalization and the delicate balance of interdependence. It highlighted the importance of collaboration, innovation, and resilience in the face of adversity. As the three nations moved forward, they carried with them the lessons learned from their shared struggles, forging a new path that prioritized cooperation over conflict, one that would define the future of North America for generations to come.